All right, everybody, welcome to our class today. We have Miss Woodard with us. She's going to be telling us about what it's like to not only be a graduate student, but be a graduate student in biochemistry. So we're going to let her tell us a little bit about what her job is.
All right, so hi everyone, my name is Danae and I'm a graduate student at UT Southwestern Medical Center here in Dallas. And I moved to Dallas in 2015 and my research is mostly biochemistry research, and I work in the Department of Ophthalmology here at UT Southwestern, where I'm looking at treating diseases that affect blindness in elderly patients.
All right, well, why did you choose this job and this path?
Yeah, so it really stems from, if I can remember in high school, I really took an interest in science, particularly in biology and chemistry. And I was really, at a young age, I was really fascinated about how the body works, how cells in your bodies work. And so over time, as I went through high school as well as college, I also became interested in how scientists work together to treat diseases. So, in college, I really started to get into more rigorous science. So taking biology, chemistry, biochemistry, all of the different science courses that you have to take. I also did research internships over the summers as well. And so it really piqued my curiosity because I was able to work in a scientific lab and be around other researchers and talk about my research with other scientists who were in my field, which was biochemistry at the time, or outside of my field. And so I really developed like a love for it and wanting to work in a lab and do my research as well as contribute to treating different diseases.
And I know our students always like to know is what diseases are you specifically working with, or what diseases interest you?
Yeah, so when I first started off in graduate school, I was in a lab that worked on Alzheimer's disease. So we really focused on a particular protein that is expressed in the brain. And what happens is in Alzheimer's, this protein essentially goes bad. And so people start to lose their memory. And so we wanted to understand, how that happens, or at what point does this happen? And are there some drugs or treatments that we can use to sort of reverse that process? And now being in the Department of Ophthalmology, it's the same thing. We're looking at, we're looking in the eye, and we're wanting to treat a very prevalent disease called age-related macular degeneration. And this disease essentially causes people that are older to go blind over time. And right now there aren't any therapies for it, but it affects over about 11 million people here in the US alone. And so we're really interested in wanting to reverse blindness in these patients because we want people to see and be happy and, enjoy their life.
Yes, sight, I believe, was ranked the most important sense for people. But how many years have you been working at this job as a graduate student, and how many more years do you plan to kind of stay in science, or what do you plan to do?
Yeah, so I've been here since 2015. So I've been here for about 6 years, and I have about a year left in graduate school. So sometime next year, early spring next year, crossing my fingers. But after this, my goal is I do want to become a professor. I would like to teach science at the college level to undergrads and also to graduate students. I would like to teach biology and chemistry. I really love those subjects, as those are my favorite subjects. So I'm going to be in school for a little bit longer. But, if you have the passion for it, the passion keeps me going. So that's what, really drives me and makes me want to pursue something higher.
Well, that's awesome. And I know you said that science has been a long time interest for you, but did you always know you were going to do this job, or how has that your interest changed over time into this path?
Yeah, so I remember when I was younger, about middle school, high school, I didn't know grad school existed. I didn't know that you could make a career out of this. But I did know that I really liked science. I really liked studying the human body. I really liked knowing all of the different processes that goes on in your body and how those processes can go bad over time. So yeah, I just knew that I really liked science, but as far as like, you know, making it into a career, I didn't know that until college when I did like summer internships in different labs. I was like, oh, I think I could like get used to this, working in a lab, getting results, and just being excited about it and sharing my research with others.
And a lot of our students, they know about applying to college, that's something they do, but how do you get involved in these research labs?
Yeah, so in college, at my university, they would always, so our science department, our biochemistry department would, you know, post flyers or email students saying, hey, you know, at Texas A&M, there's a summer internship where they'll pay you to join a lab for 8 weeks in the summer, and you can go do research in a professor's lab. And so they would really encourage you to apply. And it's a good way to really see if you want to do research in a laboratory setting. You get to learn about the different types of science that are out there. You get to present a poster, so presenting your work. So at the end, like for example, at the end of the internship, you know, I presented in front of all of these different scientists from different backgrounds and was able to communicate my research. But I had a really good time just spending those 8 weeks, and it really gave me a lot of the skills that I needed today, such as presenting my research to other people, communicating, making sure that I am effective in time management, things like that. So if you're in college and, you know, look for emails from your professors in your science department or talk to them and say, hey, do you know of any research opportunities that I could have, particularly over the summer? And then that's a good way to get your foot in the door.
Well, that's fantastic. And what is the most exciting thing about your job, or what excites you each day?
Yeah, so one of the things that really excites me is I love doing research, and every day is different. I'm someone that I like change. So every day, like typically you work on different experiments every day, sometimes several experiments throughout the day. So I really like that change, because if one thing isn't working out, I can jump to another thing, you know? And I like doing a lot of experiments, but I also like, I would say the exciting part is really being able to present my research to other people, whether they are in my field or outside of my field, because it's really a good opportunity for me to share like, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem. This is what's really important to me, you know. And sometimes, you know, other scientists, you know, especially if they're not familiar with your field, they'll offer you feedback. And they will, you know, say, hey, why don't you try this experiment? It's like, oh, I didn't really think of that. Maybe I should, you know. Or you can do collaborations. You can collaborate with another scientist in another lab and try to take your project forward. So really the interactions with other people and the different experiments day to day are really exciting to me.
And do you talk about collaborations? Do you get to work with a lot of other people? I feel like so a lot of times in, you know, movies and TV shows, these laboratory scientists are all alone in their
Yeah.
lab. But how is that for you?
Yeah, so I do get to work with other scientists. You know, I feel like that's a really key part of being a scientist, is actually forging those relationships with other people, because, you know, a lot of the times you can't do it alone, right? You need help. And so being able to, you know, at UT Southwestern, it's a very collaborative environment where you can just email a professor or a student in that lab and say, hey, you know, do you have a protocol for how to look at this certain cell under the microscope? And then they will be, you know, kind enough to be like, hey, yeah, you should come over, I can teach you, or I'll come over there and I can teach you. But collaborating is definitely very important. And I know some of my collaborators for my project, they're really nice, they're very helpful, and they're all over. So it's not just, you know, at our university, but you can collaborate with other scientists all over the US and even overseas.
Well, that's very exciting to get to meet people from all over the place.
Yeah.
About your job and your personal and social life, are there any limitations to your life because of the nature of your work?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. Yes, because, you know, getting in science, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of, sometimes it can be long hours. So sometimes I'm in the lab from 9 a.m. to about 6 p.m. And it just depends on the experiments that you have going. And that can really, sometimes that can really put a damper on your personal life. However, I would say no, because if you plan really well, you can have a personal life. You can, you know, enjoy your hobbies, go out with your friends. You can tailor your experiments to kind of fit into where you can have a social life, or you want to hang out with your family, or you want to do your favorite hobbies. So I personally have gotten a lot better, because when I first started in grad school, I would work these really long hours and probably wouldn't see the sun, you know, go down. But now I'm much better at managing my time and trying to determine, you know, which experiments are the most important, which ones will take the longest, and then adjusting my schedule to there.
Awesome. Well, it's nice that you can tailor your schedule, although it has a lot of things in it to go around what is important and outside of work and in your life.
Right.
I'm going to ask a couple questions about the education. This is something that students always love to learn about, is, you know, they see people in these careers and it's like, how on earth did they get to that point?
Yeah.
And one of the questions I want to ask is, you talked about a lot of the science classes you took in school. What was one of your favorite classes?
I would say in high school, I really, really enjoyed biology. I really enjoyed like learning about cells, how there are different cells in our bodies that do different functions. Like that was just really fascinating. Like, oh, this is actually happening inside of me. I didn't like chemistry so much in high school because my chemistry teacher was like really scary and there was a lot of math. But when I got to college, I really started to appreciate both biology and chemistry. So in college, you know, biology told me, you have these cells and like the different cellular processes that work. But really, chemistry informed me of how much detail there is. Like, why do these cells work? Oh, these have there are different reactions that actually go on in the cells, and if these reactions are messed up chemically, then this is how you get diseases. So those were my favorite two classes in college, ones that I really, really enjoyed and still enjoy to this day.
Well, awesome. And I want to make sure that I understand, the students understand, is that, you did high school, you go to college for a 4-year degree, and then you apply and you go into graduate schools. And about how long normally is a graduate school for students in science?
It's typically between 4 and 6 years. It depends on if you want to. So at UT Southwestern for the biochemistry program, the normal time of graduation is about 5 years. And for the chemistry program, yeah, there's about the same, 5 to 6 years. But some students have gotten out in 4 years. It depends on your project. It depends on your mentor, so the person whose lab you're working in, and trying to get your research on track.
And then you go into a job following that.
Right. So then from there you decide, do you want to stay in research? So typically you would do a postdoc, which is like after graduate school. So you're still doing research in a different lab, or you can do industry. So you can work at an actual like company like Genentech or Pfizer.
Well, everyone will know Pfizer. So
yeah.
At this point. And how many days a week do you normally work?
So I'm usually in the lab Monday through Friday. So I work from typically 9:30 a.m. until about 6:30 p.m. Sometimes I get off a little earlier. It just depends on the experiment that I'm doing. I do sometimes come in on the weekends, but no more than about a couple of hours, because I love to enjoy my weekends and, hang out with my friends or be with my family. So that's typically my work week.
Awesome. And, a lot of students might think when we talk about the number of years and the work for this, is how are you able to pay for this? How do you support yourself through this time?
Yeah, so the really cool thing about graduate school that I didn't know about in college was that the schools actually pay you. So if you think about it, they're paying you to sit around and think about your research and do experiments. So they will pay you. You do not have to come out of pocket for anything. The schools will pay for your tuition and they pay you money to actually do research. So you get a free ride.
So basically like free school and you're getting paid like a job.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Well, that is a fantastic deal. And with everything happening this year, I'd like to ask everybody, how has COVID affected your job? Were there a lot of changes?
Yeah, so there weren't a lot of changes. We're still, as scientists, we're still working in the lab. And what's really cool is that, a lot of our scientists on campus are actually working on COVID-19 and actually trying to study this virus and trying to understand, why it's causing disease. But, scientists, we don't stop working, we're still working and we're still enjoying it.
Well, that's fantastic that you're still getting to do your job. And it's
Yeah.
also very cool to hear that other people on UT Southwestern's campus are in the fight against the virus and researching it as well as treating it. So definitely a medical center that does everything all around.
Yes.
For any students that may think graduate school is something that they'd be interested in, that they think science is fascinating, what advice or words of wisdom do you have for these students pursuing?
Yeah, so if you're, in middle school or high school, I would encourage you to, if you love science, keep at it. Passion goes a long way. But definitely when you get to college, I would talk to, your chemistry or biology department and ask them if they know of any summer research internships that you can get involved in. These internships are typically paid, so they pay you to come out and do research for about 6 to 8 weeks. And that'll give you, time to know whether or not you really like science, whether or not you really like research, and if this is something that you want to pursue long-term and apply to graduate school. And plus, it would look really good on your CV or resume. So that would be my advice. The earlier that you can start, the better.
Mm-hmm. It gives you information on if it's something you really want to do and teaches you and builds you up for pretty much anything else you want to go into, if it's science or not.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. We enjoyed having you here and I hope the students have learned. For all my students watching, remember that you have to fill out your survey. It will be shown at the end as well as the link will be in the bio of the video. Once you've completed 80% of your surveys, you'll receive your certificate for the course. Thank you for joining us today, everybody.
Thank you.